Close-Up is brought to you by the Kia Sorento R, redefining the power of Kia.
We've all done it. Passed it down and out on the streets, avoided eye contact, move on as fast as possible. We don't want to know. After all, their lives are too removed from our own. But how would we know? Tonight we look at one of those lives we've passed by. He has a name, Ben Hawea. He's an addict and the system can't cope with him. So how do we deal with the Bens of this world? Jahan Casanada investigates.
He's a solvent abuser and his solvent of choice is Petrol. He sniffs petrol and in recent times he's begun to drink it. So he's got his bag there and the petrol within it and he just wanders around sniffing it.
Is this a regular occurrence?
Yeah, daily.
Time is running out for 21-year-old Ben Hawea.
Your only options are to brain damage yourself or die. Really, there's only one outcome for him, unless we can help him.
People around town know him as the blanket boy, but he's Ben. He's got a name, he's got a personality.
Locals say Ben has fallen through the cracks of the system.
I don't worry about my future, I just go day by day sort of thing. I just try to be courageous as I can.
Ben grew up in Masterton and went to school with Aiden.
Ben Hawea, as I remember him, he's just a playful guy. We were in the same class, you know, he had just as much ability as me. He was always good at spelling. I remember even when I was young, he could spell the word miscellaneous. He may not have had the same family situation as me, but you could still talk to him fine. There was nothing different. If he'd chosen the right path, he could have been anywhere right now.
But Ben had early run-ins with the law.
Low-level offending, some small thefts and things like that.
At the time, Ben was being raised by his grandma.
Ben's nan was really good and provided the support that he needed and the stability that he needed in his childhood, and unfortunately when she died there wasn't somebody to take that place.
By then, Ben was too old to be taken in by Child, Youth and Family. He couldn't live with his own family, and there are no homeless shelters in Masterton, so he began sleeping under bridges and in public parks. Ben spends his days on the streets, asking strangers for money to allow him to buy petrol, something he's been doing for at least a year.
I was kind of shocked. I didn't expect anyone, let alone Ben, to be like that.
When we found Ben, he was obviously high and in no shape to talk. When we approached him later, he was coming down off his high and was willing to have a chat.
So do you reckon you've got an addiction?
Well, like sometimes, yeah, I think I do, just like everyone else, you know, no one's innocent. There's a lot of other drugs and shit that people turn to as well when they're in depressing moments and they're sort of, you know, how I'm living.
At first, Ben bought petrol from service stations.
He would just sneak behind the pumps, get the fuel and come in and give you the money and walk straight out. Up to that stage, I had no idea he was inhaling it.
It's not illegal for Ben to buy petrol, but service stations have now agreed not to sell it to him.
I said, I'm sorry I can't sell you any fuel because I know what you're going to do with it. And he said, why, have you got ESP? And I said, don't need to have ESP to know what you're doing with it, dear, and I don't agree, so please leave.
So Ben has turned to siphoning it out of cars or asking others to buy it for him.
He would wait until a customer came around the side of the building and then say, could you please take this in and give it to the, or could you go and give this to the attendant?
Police and community groups have tried to intervene.
We've even tried to get him on a benefit, tried to get him housing, got food for him.
But what Ben needs most is treatment. A judge put him on a compulsory treatment order and sent him to rehab down south, but Ben only lasted a week.
He siphoned petrol from the beetroot washer.
From the beetroot washer?
Yes, yes.
That's how desperate he is.
That's right, that's right.
The police, the lawyers, even the judges all agree that putting Ben in jail isn't going to help him. They've searched up and down the country for a secure rehab facility, but they haven't been able to find one. So on some occasions there's been no choice but to put him behind bars.
When he isn't in jail, he's back on the streets.
There's no life in his eyes. You look at him, he's just blank.
Jared remembers Ben from his school days too.
Yeah, he was smarter than me. He was probably the best person in class at maths.
These days, Ben turns up at the pharmacy where Jared works. He's tried to buy a product which he thought would line his stomach before drinking petrol.
A lot of people I've seen have turned a blind eye. They think he wants to be homeless, that he wants to drink petrol for the rest of his life until he dies. I don't believe that's correct.
Ben has the support of a local family who took him in for a few weeks, also a pastor who's trying to mentor him.
If someone had have captured Ben up, taken him up when he was 10, when Grandma died, and said, Ben, these are things that happen in life.
Things could have been different.
Way different. And I still believe there is a Ben there that we can still reach.
But finding a rehab facility is only part of the problem. Ben needs to commit to it.
Do you worry that it's doing something to your body?
I'm not really concerned. No.
I want you to have a life. The life you're living isn't worth it at all. I want you to grow up, have kids, live the life you want.
What kind of life do you want to have?
Just a good one like everyone else.
Yeah.
No one's a bad life. It's pretty simple.
But right now, life could be cut short in an instant. While there is petrol in Ben's body, he also smokes.
Unless Ben makes some changes and makes the decision that he wants life, I don't see a long future for Ben.
Joining me now from our Wellington studio, Roger Brooking. He's the Clinical Director of Wellington's Alcohol and Drug Assessment Counselling Program. Roger, what do you do when you pass someone like Ben on the street?
Well, Mark, I deal with people somewhat similar to Ben on a regular basis, and some of them a lot worse than him, in fact. And I tend to walk past and then I think, how did New Zealand get into this state? 20 years ago, walking down the street, there wouldn't be people like that in the street.
Is it a judgment thing? Do we presume they're to blame for their own situation, so we leave them to it?
Well, just listening to that interview, you could hear the police and others saying that he had to take responsibility. At the end of the day, that's true, but right now, he's not in a mental state where he's capable of taking responsibility. He was sent to Nova Lodge in Christchurch under the Alcoholism and Drug Addiction Act, and he only lasted a few days. He may need another crack at compulsory treatment.
Look, this was compulsory treatment. If he leaves, if he runs away, if he does something, and they don't pursue it, or no one pursues him, it doesn't make it very compulsory, does it?
Well, the difficulty, I think, at Nova Lodge, where he was sent, is that that's not what I would really call a treatment centre. It's a 72-acre farm. It has sheep, pigs, cattle. It has a market garden. It has a lot of equipment which require petrol to run the equipment. So it was really not the right place for him.
How many right places are there? I mean, what facilities are there in this country for the likes of him?
Well, unfortunately, there's only 4 treatment centres in the entire country which are approved to take patients, compulsory patients. The Law Commission has reviewed the legislation and made very clear recommendations that we need to have more facilities available for compulsory treatment. And maybe some of them need to be a lot more secure than what we currently have.
But look, we know people get sick, we know people have car accidents, so we build hospitals. We know people have addictions. Why is there the reluctance to provide facilities to deal with that?
Well, for many years, I think New Zealand has taken a very short-sighted approach. We seem to be quite willing to spend $900 million on a new prison at Wiri. So we'll build a prison at the bottom of the cliff, but we don't seem to want to spend the money on fences at the top of the cliff. And that's the problem.
And someone like Ben, if he does not get treatment for his addiction, what's going to happen?
Well, his offending will escalate. He's already been in and out of prison a few times on very short sentences, a week or 10 days. Short-term prisoners like that do not get any treatment. If he commits a more serious offence and gets a 2-year sentence, at that point he will become eligible to attend a rehabilitation program in prison. And I mean, I'm currently working with a guy who's a solvent abuser who's about 45 years old. He's still in prison. It's taken me 5 years to get a residential treatment centre that will take him.
You talked before about this whole issue of personal responsibility. And I know people would have watched tonight and go, well, you know, he's got an iPod or he's got a flash watch. I mean, he can look after himself. Isn't it down to him to make a decision? Are they capable of making the decisions they need to make?
No, they're not. And that's why the Act is there. Unfortunately, it doesn't work very well. We don't have sufficient treatment centres available in the community. I mean, if I was the Minister of Health, what I would do with this young man is I wouldn't send him away. I would rent a nice 4-bedroom home in the Wairarapa. I would staff it with 4 or 5 capable alcohol and drug clinicians, and I would provide a minder to keep an eye on him 24/7. Might need 3 of them. That's how I would deal with somebody like this.
And that would be worth doing?
Absolutely, because his life could be turned around. It appears, listening to the people that know him, that he's a young man who has potential. He's intelligent. He may have knocked off a few brain cells sniffing petrol, but I think at this point he's still savable. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to happen.
Roger Brooking, we do appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.